I'm used to virtual, being put on mute. I can say anything I want to say. I guess not. I guess not. I'm in a different space. Oh, we are? Good. Don't do that to me. See what Goshen does to me. You know, that's why
you would like to talk, that probably.
I love Goshen. I just love it.
Yes. Yeah, we're not going to have to do, I don't believe we'll do roll call today. All right, we're at 10.
Call the September 8th meeting of the Michiana Area Council of Governments Policy Board meeting to order. And first item is roll call. James?
I'll be taking a quick roll call to see who's in attendance. So first we'll start off with Mike Belovic, Councilman, City of Mishawaka. Councilwoman Mandy Campbell, Marshall County.
Here.
Deputy District Commissioner Matt Deitchley unfortunately had a family emergency, so he won't be able to make it today. Councilman Dwight Fish, City of Elkhart.
Online.
Thank you. Commissioner Fleming, St. Joe County.
Here.
Councilman Doug Graham, Elkhart County.
Here.
Commissioner Kerry Groninger, Kosciuszko County, unfortunately had a prior meeting. Councilwoman Councilwoman's online. Mayor Phil Jenkins couldn't be here today. Deputy District Commissioner Todd Johnson in attendance. Good morning. Mayor James Mueller, City of South Bend.
Present.
Commissioner Kevin Overmeyer, Marshall County. Mayor Rod Robertson, City of Elkhart.
Present.
Councilman Mark Root, St. Joe County. Mayor Mark Center, City of Plymouth.
Yo.
Good morning, Mayor. Mayor Jeremy Stutzman, City of Goshen.
Here.
Mayor Tolmer from the City of Warsaw had a COVID public meeting today, so couldn't be here. Commissioner Susie Wyrick, Elkhart County.
Here.
Morning. And Councilman Wiggins could not be in attendance, and Mayor Dave Wood also could not be in attendance today. So we do have a quorum of members in person, but we do not have enough members in person to do virtual voting. So the three members that are online, you are more than welcome to participate in the meeting. We're just not able to record your votes today. So that means that we will not be doing roll call votes. We will just be doing in-person first and seconds, and we won't have to do roll call voting today. So with that, I'll turn it back over to you.
Okay, thank you, James. Next, we have our minutes from July 14th. Are there any questions, comments, or a motion to approve?
So moved.
Second.
Motion and a second to approve minutes from July 14th. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
And opposed? And those minutes are approved. Thank you. I don't have a chairman's report today. Did you have anything you wanted to do under that? Okay, we'll move on to the financial report. Debbie?
Hey, Jeremy.
Yes.
Point of order. Can any of the online participants motion?
No, we can't take motions. They can't participate in that way.
At all?
They can participate through discussion today due to
Okay.
our bylaws, but
Got
that's-
it.
yeah.
Got it. I know he said voting. I just want to know if they could make a motion.
Thank
Or
you.
a second. Thanks.
Debbie?
Good morning, everyone. So you should have both June and July's financial reports, but I believe we will approve those separately. For the month, or for the year ending June 30th, 2021, our year-to-date expenses were $5,461,499.05. This was approximately 69% of our total annual budget, and this was also the end of the fiscal year for 2021. The cash balance at the end of June was $2,385,172.58. And our total disbursements for the month of June was $493,728.65. Are there any questions about the June financial report?
This is Dwight Fish. I have one question, please.
Sure.
it's not directly, it's actually accumulated depreciation. Can you tell me where the 4 million plus has been accumulated from? It's in the, under our assets.
Under assets.
It's the last line.
Okay, so that's the depreciation on all of the assets that we own.
So
Everything-
Councilman,
Go ahead.
to answer
Like-
specifically, probably the majority of our depreciation is in our rolling stock. So if you
Yeah,
think
those would be
of,
our largest assets that we have.
if you think of the ownership of the 13 trolley buses, each that cost 400 some $1,000 a piece, the ADA vans, any of those assets are on depreciation schedules, as well as then any other asset that we own that's above $500.
$500 we put on.
Right,
gas.
but so the majority of depreciation assets is going to be under the rolling stock.
And
And do
also,
we-
that's for the life of the asset, so the
Okay,
equipment line item is everything that we currently own at its purchase price, and the accumulated depreciation is over the lifetime of the assets.
and do we liquidate those eventually? Can we liquidate those to
Yes,
recoup some of that? Okay,
yes.
thank you.
You're welcome. Any other questions? If not, I'd like to ask for board approval of the June financial report.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to approve the June financial report. Is there any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 And opposed? And it's approved. Thank you.
All right, moving on to July. So this will be the first year of fiscal year 2022. Our total year-to-date expenses for July is $817,956.97. I did want to point out the contractual services are rather high for the month, and that is because we paid for the pictometry contract in July. So that alone was $374,000. So that's like 2 times as much as we normally spend in a regular month. Also point out, we got the invoice for the fiscal year 2020 audit in July, so that is in here as well. Our cash balance at the end of July was $2,324,333.90. And our total disbursements in the month of July was $446,019.96. Are there any questions? Not hearing any, I'd like to ask for the board's approval of the July financial report.
So move.
Second.
Motion and a second. Thank you again, Debbie. Are there any questions, comments? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
And opposed? And that passes. And for everybody online, unfortunately, we don't have enough people in the room today, so we can only have members voting that are actually in the room. Brings us to our secretary report. James.
Yes, unfortunately, Commissioner Groninger could not be here today, but he did file a lengthy secretary's report with me, which is the July and August modifications. You'll recall modifications are minor corrections that the board has allowed staff to make based on various conditions between meetings. These do not require board approval. These listings are more informational for your knowledge, and you can see all of those changes that we made in July and August. Those are also published online so the public can see them as well. So largely informational. That would conclude today's secretary report.
Thank you, James. Old business.
There is no old business today.
And then we'll move into new business.
Hey, good morning, everyone. So you'll remember that we did a restructuring of our amendments. So today, all of our amendments will fall under Transportation Resolution 33-21. So we'll start with item A. It's a locally initiated project, County Bridge 148 at Sunnyside Ave at US 33 over Norfolk Southern Railroad in Elkhart County. This is a new bridge construction, and we are adding in PE. Item B is an extension and realignment of County Road 13 from Sunnyside Avenue to County Road 45 in Elkhart County. This is a new bridge construction, and we are adding in right-of-way. Item C is County Road 1300 over Norfolk Southern Railroad and Main Street in Kosciuszko County. This is a new bridge construction, and we are adding in right-of-way. And the final locally initiated project, we have item D. This is at Michigan Street from Walnut Street to Vintage Street in Marshall County. This is a bike/pedestrian facility, and we are adding in PE and construction. And then we'll move on to the NDOT initiated projects. We have item E, which is a high friction surface treatment throughout various locations in the Fort Wayne district. This is a safety revision, and we are adding in PE and construction. And then the final item is item F. It's a new or slotted left turn lane throughout various locations in the Fort Wayne district. This is in other intersection improvements, and we are adding in PE and construction. So those are all the amendments we have. I'm happy to take any questions, and if there are none, I would ask for your approval of Resolution 33-21.
So moved.
We have a motion and a second, and thank you for the report, Allison.
Thank you.
Are there any questions, comments on the resolution? Okay, hearing none, we have a motion and a second to pass Resolution 33-21. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
And opposed? And that passes. Go on to our next resolution.
All right, I'll be presenting the next two resolutions. The first resolution here is 3421. This is a resolution endorsing a grant application to the Federal Transit Administration. So FTA has a program that's out right now that's called the Areas of Persistent Poverty. And they are looking for projects that are largely planning in nature. They are not for capital purchases or for operations. So it's largely planning-based projects, which focus on trying to increase or enhance public transit offerings in the census tracts or counties that are considered areas of persistent poverty, which is a federal term. One of the potential ideas that we have come up with working with Transpo and a number of our partners is an idea that stems from something that we did operationally during COVID, which is when Transpo moved to having a weekend schedule. The Interurban Trolley actually helped them run the Route 9 so that we would maintain service from South Bend through Mishawaka into Elkhart, and that would provide the regular kind of 30-minute headway service. And that means that a bus comes every 30 minutes. The normal travel time from South Bend to Elkhart, it depends on when you leave, but it's roughly by bus an hour to an hour 45. In the areas of persistent poverty, which we have a map for, I don't know if we have it on the slides, but I can provide that to anyone who's interested. If you think about access to opportunity in those areas, to realistically think that someone will travel each morning an hour 45 to get to opportunities that are in Elkhart from South Bend or from Elkhart into South Bend and vice versa, it's very limiting. When you look at the areas of persistent poverty based on our indicators of potential disadvantage, like, for example, carless households, high concentrations of carless households are also in the areas of persistent poverty, so they're transit-dependent potential populations. So your access to opportunity is extremely limited based on how the transit systems are currently set up, the high level. So what we're looking at doing in partnership with Transpo is studying the feasibility of what's called bus rapid transit, or BRT. And bus rapid transit, for those that aren't familiar, it would look at ways to pulse in a quicker fashion, more regular headways, as well as then some capital investments long-term that would look at either bus lanes, boarding stations where you're doing off bus fare recovery there, so that that's not slowing down boarding times, and a number of other different elements that improve the ability to put that commute more in line with car travel, which is about a half hour by car. So this would study the feasibility of that, the implementability of it, whether or not it would be competitive for something like new starts or small starts, which are federal programs that would look at funding those opportunities, as well as then looking at if we have platforms in particular stations where this BRT would go, where there could be opportunities for what's called transit-oriented development, essentially just development that would occur around these permanent fixed stations. So Resolution 3421 is, this grant was originally going to be due at the end of August, but because of the hurricane, they extended the deadline out to September 13th. And so we're looking to apply for the FTA areas of persistent poverty. This resolution would authorize 3 different items. It would allow MACOG to apply and administer if we were awarded those FTA grant funds. It would allow MACOG Executive Director to sign related documents on behalf of the organization, and it would commit $50,000. This is a 90-10 funding program, so we'd be applying for $450,000, and we would only have to commit $50,000, which we have available in our general fund, in local matching funds. Obviously, if we don't get that, those funds would not have to be permanently set aside if we're not awarded this. But we do think that there is a good case to be made for why this study should be funded, and it's very in line with what the program seeks to achieve. So happy to answer any questions that folks might have regarding this.
Growing up, I had public transportation in out again from basically Midway Airport to bus and
Yes. Trains is obviously a potential solution, but it also is a larger capital outlay than fixed. Yes, yes. Yep.
Question, James? Dwight
Yes,
Fish?
Councilman.
Within this program, what are you using to target areas inside the city, like in Elkhart?
Sure. So the FTA has a definition of areas of persistent poverty, and I don't have it in front of me. I can pull it up real quick here if you give me a second. But it's based on a number of months/years in which a area has been a census tract. So they're based on census tracts, first off. We're not targeting anything. The FTA has told us which census tracts are eligible. And so when you look at census tracts in Elkhart County, I don't have the census tract numbers in front of me, and I apologize. I can get you that information. But largely, many of the census tracts that are south of the river and kind of bounded by the bypass and US 33 in that area meet the federal definitions of areas of persistent poverty, as well as along kind of the McKinley County Road, I believe that's County Road 6 corridor, over by Ash Road and the Walmart there. Those would be particular areas around the city of Elkhart that meet the persistent poverty rules.
Okay, I'd like to take a look at that information when you have it available.
Happy to. I know just the other day, you may have been copied on an email that I sent. Okay, yeah, Zach's going to share a screen here to be able to pull that image up so that you can see it. So give us just a second and we can pull it up. While we pull that up, are there other questions that I can help answer? You got it, Zach? All right, here we go. All right, so these are the areas of persistent poverty that are identified by the FTA throughout kind of the area that we're discussing. We could zoom out and obviously see the rest of the region, but within kind of the corridors around Transpo and the interurban trolley, we're predominantly talking about these areas. And so when we overlay our Route 9, Transpo's Route 9 and MACOG's yellow line, it goes through the core of many of these census tracts. And obviously we would need to study the appropriate corridor, but that's where we're saying if we could enhance transit that runs at a more rapid pace through these areas, that it would unlock opportunities, so that you could more realistically have a chance to work in the RV industry if you worked on the southwest side of South Bend, because your commute time is only 30 minutes and not an hour and 40 minutes. So those are kind of the areas that we're looking at. Does this help?
Yes, thank you very much.
Absolutely. So happy to answer any other questions on Resolution 3421.
Is there a motion to approve?
So moved.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to pass Resolution 3421. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 And opposed? That resolution is passed. Thank you.
All right, next resolution, Resolution 3521. There are two typographical errors here that I'll have corrected for you. But what Resolution 3521 essentially is it's a memorandum of understanding. So MACOG in its role, we often are an extension of local government staff. We try and address regional issues. We serve in a variety of different ways to different organizations. So, for example, since the 80s, MACOG has been in a staffing agreement with the St. Joseph River Basin Commission to provide their separate organization with MACOG staff to help run that organization. We have an agreement with the Northern Indiana RDA where we provide accounting services to them. We have lots of different innovative agreements like that where we help local governments out in our region to provide them with additional capacity. For many years, decades, we have acted as a de facto planning agency for Transpo. Transpo does not have planning staff members. It is common in transit that a transit agency would have a planning staff, but where we are having to try and figure out a service request as it comes in for Transpo, or kind of a much more reactive nature. Working with their board and their CEO, we have come up with a planning services agreement where they would co-fund one of our transit planners. They would be providing about 40% of that person's salary and benefits so that we could be their official planning wing. That way they would not have to hire a full-time staff member, that we would be able to collaboratively develop a better scope of work that we would do on a more regular basis. And it would be official, not just kind of an ad hoc thing that we do. So that's what that memorandum spells out. In item 2 of the memorandum, there's two typographical things. First, it says MACOG, to pay MACOG. It should say 47, not 4th 7. So $47,650, or $15. And that is not a per month. That would be a pretty salty deal if that's what we were bringing in per month. That should be a per year agreement. So, while I would love to execute a $47,615 per month contract, that's not what we agreed to. It's per year. So I am happy to answer any questions. The Transport Board has approved of this idea already. They've signed off, not necessarily on this agreement, but they've given their director the authority to sign off on this because these details are what was presented. So happy to answer any questions.
You need to vote on MOU.
Passing the resolution does all that, correct?
Yeah, I was going to say, I think the signature line does not say whether it'll be me or the chair. So happy to, I think, pass the resolution and it'll be executed. Happy to answer any other questions.
Motion resolution 520.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to approve Resolution 3521. Is there any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
And opposed? And that passes. Thank you. Next, we have a presentation from Zach.
Good morning, everyone. Just a few items here. I want to again give you an update and talk to you about a few other items that MACOG is beginning to work on. It's a little background information on this. As you recall, every year we bring up and talk about national performance goals that the Federal Highway Administration has put into the highway bill, and we discuss various numbers and figures, and we discuss how we, as a region, help support the Indiana's goals to achieve those national goals. Up on the screen, you kind of see those 7 primary national goals: safety, infrastructure condition, congestion, system reliability, freight mobility, and the environment, and reduced project delivery delays. And we, as the MPO, again, the national goals are primarily geared towards the national highway system and other kind of national assets in that way. And as MPO, we look to support the NDOT on their mission to support their system and look at that. So we've done that for many years, but we've also been asked many times about what does our local system look like? How is this reflected in our region? And we've been looking at ways to kind of do a deeper dive and looking into that. On the screen here, you also see some screenshots. Deep dive into this and help provide you as our board, your staff, as well as the public, better access to this information. And so to look at that, we decided looking at one of those performance goals, which is bridge condition. So what we are currently developing is a dashboard which helps display and navigate this information. Starting off with bridge condition data because it is a data source that is currently publicly available through Federal Highway, through the National Bridge Inventory. However, to access this data, you have to go to the website and navigate and end up downloading an Excel sheet, basically with many columns full of various data sets that may not be very understandable to the general public. And so what we are doing is basically consuming that information and formatting and presenting it out so that it's a little more easy to understand and navigate through to give you, again, a better idea what that bridge condition information looks like. And so what I'm going to do right now is kind of walk through a little bit of just some of those functions, orient you a little bit with what we are currently developing, and then we'll talk a little bit more about kind of what our next steps look like. And so eventually this will be accessible off our website in order to, again, for you to have access to. So the layout, just again for reference, we have a large map in the middle which shows where all those bridge locations are. On the right, you'll see a legend to understand that information. So we have a good, fair, poor rating system. This is kind of a simplified scoring metric for us to understand what that current condition is, get a good sense of what our bridge conditions are. And then also there's a different shape for locally owned bridges and state or other owned bridges. In the middle here, we have a few indicators here to help get us information on how many bridges are in good, fair, or poor conditions. So you can see there's a percentage gauge there as well as a total number. So currently in the region there are about 40% of the bridges are in good condition, which is about 347 bridges. Then we also then have some filters here to help you drill down to that information. So you can look at that. So one of the first ones I want to highlight was the county. So you can filter by county. When you click on that, it just shows all the county bridges. You can then, if you want to locate just local bridges, locally owned bridges, there's a filter to look further on that, and the map then dynamically changes for you. And then if you really just want to look at poor condition bridges, again, there's another feature to look a little more closely at what those look like. And then last a little bit is you also then that map is interactive, so you can zoom in on that map into South Bend area, look at a few key bridges here. And then you can even select those bridges. At the very bottom is a chart which provides more information about those bridges. So you can see where that bridge is located, what facility, what road carries that bridge, what its traffic like, lanes, structure type, when it was expected, its condition, and then the very last four columns are some of those details that go into the score calculation of its condition. So its condition of its deck, its superstructure, substructure. So that gets it that final total. Again, so this is draft form right now. What we're looking to do is we're getting some feedback from your staff. Here, we'll be sending this out to them, particularly the engineers, the planners who might be more familiar with this data, who might use it on a regular basis to make sure that we're presenting information that's useful, that the format is easy to navigate and understand, and any other data or interest points that would be good to display to the public. And then we'll be looking to do a rollout on our website for that. And so I want to turn things over to James, maybe to add a little more context, a little more information. But again, the goal of today was just kind of give you a little preview of what we're looking at incorporating here in the near future, as well as potential other future options.
Yeah, thanks, Zach. So just kind of to reiterate what Zach said, often we've come to the board, presented these federal performance measures. And often in that conversation, as we're having it, many of those performance measures, because they're national performance measures, are focused very much on the national highway system, very much on state facilities. They're not necessarily always representative of what's happening in the region as a whole. And so often we end up just supporting the state target, and we do that in a great collaborative process, working with NDOT to develop those targets. But this board has asked multiple times if there are better ways that you all could see condition and kind of the overall picture of our transportation assets for the region, not just on the state highway system, right? So this was a first step and effort around that, which is on the bridge inventory. You can filter that in many different ways. You can see all the state bridges and their condition, as well as each of the county bridges, and just kind of get a good understanding. It's using the federal requirements for what is good, fair, poor, so it matches and aligns with a state or the federal performance measure. But it'll allow you, in your capacity and your engineers and county highway folks, to be able to visualize your bridge inventories and be able to see that, as well as the public as well. So we're trying to get input on this dashboard, as well as then have a conversation with you about other dashboards that we could or should develop, some of which could be around crash data and public safety, as well as a question around whether doing something like this for our roads and the Payzer ratings for each of those roads, because at this point, we are regularly rating roads and have that information. I think staff last week was in Osceola and Bristol. I was going to say New Carlisle, sorry, but Bristol. And later this month, we'll be in Etna Green and other locations rating roads. So we have a lot of that data and could put together inventory like this that would be interactive and provide a dashboard and show us kind of along Payzer where we could publish something like that as well. So happy to answer any questions, largely around this or other dashboards that we could create, but wanted to present this as this is a near finished product related to those bridge assets.
James, when do we, or Zach, I'm not sure, when do we anticipate this being rolled out on our website? Do we have
Yeah, so our goal is over the next few weeks to get this to, again, the city staff to get, and county staff to get their feedback. So I would think in the next month, to be conservative, again, just get that feedback.
So the bridge inventory is, Councilwoman Hammond asked how often is this data updated? So the MBI counties do an inspection on a 2-year cycle. And it's 2 years, right? Yeah, all right. Everybody shook their head, so I just want to make sure. But so since we're pulling this from the MBI, we'd be able to get those updates when the National Bridge Inventory is updated, and we'd be able to feed that right into the system so it would sync with those updates. Any other questions? Any thoughts on whether or not something like this should be done for road ratings?
Absolutely, James. Any of our inventory, any of our responsibilities should be rated and available to the general public as well as contractors, et cetera, et cetera. I think more information is better.
All right. Well,
And I'd also certainly like to see it in this format rather than some Excel spreadsheet that's hard to determine. The user-friendliness of this, I think, is very good.
yeah, and you can click on each one of those points and it'll zoom into that location, give you kind of we've skinnied it down. The bridge inventory has a lot of points of information about each bridge, but we've skinnied it down to, what bridge is it? What facility is it? What is it crossing? What are the number of lanes? How much traffic? And then across these key categories that make up the overall score. So we're not doing every single component of the bridge inventory, but the key things that drive the score.
Yep.
So just as an FYI. All right, well, we'll continue to push forward with this. Hopefully by the time we're meeting again for the October meeting that we'll have this live for the bridge inventory, and we'll come back to you in future months regarding other assets as well as we develop those.
It is nice. Oh, one other question. Sharing some of this information with my street department and some of the others that, I think would benefit from seeing it. Is there any roll down that we can kind of isolate for cities?
Yeah, so there is a filter on the right-hand side, and I believe there is.
So it is just by county right now. And so I did not put any city item in there. The
Since
primary.
all the bridges are owned by the
It's
counties.
in
I get
Indiana.
it. I understand.
Yeah, so that's why there's not, but there's probably an ability I could add
In
in.
a future rollout, that's a filter that could be added.
Yeah.
That's great, because the roads that lead to those bridges are areas in which we should focus on internally in order to help augment that piece. And now we can add an additional stretch that probably is more pertinent for our entire, it actually allows us to do a little bit more comprehensive view of how we marshal our resources as well.
Yeah.
Yeah, and these do not include like pedestrian bridges, that these are only the vehicular bridges that are on the National Bridge Inventory.
Correct. All right, thank you very much.
You.
I'll continue on with our staff update. I'm pleased to welcome and introduce all of you to one of our new staff members, Ashley Matthews. Ashley started on August 11th with us, so this is her first policy board today. Ashley's in the audience. Hi, Ashley. Ashley has started with us as a new administrative assistant, so you may be getting calls or emails from Ashley in the future. So if everybody could help me in welcoming her on board. This is where we all say, hi, Ashley.
Oh, is that, I'm like, how do you want us to do that? Would you, hi, Ashley?
Yeah. All right, next we'll talk about grants and funding opportunities that are rolling out, so I'll turn it over to Allison.
Okay, I just wanted to let you all know that the next call for federal funding through the local rural program will begin November 1st of this year and end on December 3rd. So if you have any questions, you can contact your district program director or myself. I'm happy to help as I can. And then I also wanted to let you guys know that our next quarterly tracking meeting will be held October 6th. This will be the second quarterly tracking of our fiscal year, and we'll walk through all of our locally initiated projects in the region. Right now, we have a little over 50 different projects. And so your staff should be on a lookout from an email from Carla in the next week about important dates and reminders. Thank you.
Good morning. We are very excited to bring back National Drive Electric Week this year after it went virtual last year. So we've decided to host two different events, keeping the one we had envisioned last year in Goshen at City Hall as part of during First Fridays, and then adding one on the Notre Dame campus as well the week prior. So this will be September 25th in South Bend, October 1st in Goshen. There'll be opportunities for test drive, and really the goal is to get people that firsthand experience with electric vehicles test driving, and we have a lot of local drivers that have signed up to bring their own vehicles, since this year supply chains and shortage of vehicles is just EVs and otherwise across the board pretty difficult to get new vehicles there. So, am I controlling the slides? Yes. Okay. Also, next month we're still planning this to be an in-person event, our biannual Sustainable Solutions Conference and Expo, which last year also turned into just a virtual event. Topics will be sustainable transportation, buildings and facilities, and sustainability strategy. And we're looking forward to hosting this event. At this point, we don't have a hybrid option that we've built in, but we'll be monitoring the situation as it moves forward. If you're interested in registering, this is geared towards any decision makers at any level, but particularly fleets, facilities managers, like a director of transportation, director of operations.
Where will this be held?
This will be in South Bend, director of operations.
Where will this be held?
This will be in South Bend at the Century Center. Yeah.
Good morning. We were able to hold our first steering committee for the Regional Freight Mobility Plan in August. This gave us a chance to kind of go over some previous work that's been done in the freight realm, as well as go over some trends. And there were several input opportunities that we were able to do. If you're interested in kind of providing some feedback for this plan kind of in your own time, we do have a website that's currently live, macogfreightplan.com, where you can provide some input, and we have a map as one of the last. So if there's existing freight issues in your communities that you want to be sure to highlight, you can include those there. But the steering committee kickoff was kind of the initial phase that we're moving into a lot of stakeholder engagement with manufacturers and trucking companies and things like that. Over the next few months, we'll be holding those stakeholder interviews, as well as holding some focus groups here in the coming months to kind of move that plan forward.
Good morning, everybody. You'll remember back in May, we kicked off the Disaster Recovery and Economic Resiliency Plan with Fourth Economy, our consultants. Happy to report that that process is coming to an end as we end this summer. Last week, we had 6 prototyping sessions where we brought key stakeholders from the region together to discuss strategies for the final plan that MACOG would help carry out. 4E took that back to their kind of ideation process and is reporting to our steering committee later this afternoon, actually, about the strategies they've come up with to recommend to MACOG to move forward with. They'll then take any comments the steering committee has today, kind of formulate the final plan, and the steering committee will meet again at the end of September to give their final stamp of approval with an expected delivery date of the final plan to MACOG by about mid-October. I'll remind you, too, that the plan is meant to be a roadmap for MACOG moving forward in economic resiliency, both in the READY process as well as any EDA grants that we might submit, including the Build Back Better Regional Challenge, which if you have any questions about that, let us know. And this is really a roadmap for us working with our partners to build back better, as the saying goes, moving forward from here. If you have any questions on that, yeah, James.
Yeah, so real quick, Brett brings up the Build Back Better Regional Challenge, and while it's not on the agenda as an update, it's something that we did debrief folks earlier this morning on, but just to continue to make sure the full board's aware of Build Back Better Regional Challenge as kind of the ready process is wrapping up and the resiliency plan is wrapping up, comes at kind of a perfect time. This is an EDA funded program. This is a challenge grant, if you will, where in phase 1, they will select 50 to 60 regions, provide them with $500,000 worth of technical assistance that can go towards developing projects or a number of other different kind of elements. With that, ones that you are looking to support. So yesterday we did have kind of a brainstorming session between MACOG staff, SBE staff, as well as then the LIFT network at Notre Dame to talk through how our region, based off of what we've learned through the disaster recovery plan, through READY, kind of previous reports like the Brookings Institute or Techonomy, how we could approach this challenge. And so we do plan on talking with all of you more as we try and figure out a phase 1 application, which is due October 19th. God loves that they keep providing us with so much time to develop these applications, but we are trying to look at how the region approaches that grant.
And I think with that being said as well, there are other opportunities to the EDA right now. So if any of your local cities, counties, organizations need any assistance with that, please feel free to reach out to us and we can help you think through those applications. Thank you.
One question of Zach.
Yeah.
The general purpose of the resiliency plan as it relates to publication is what?
So it's a publication for the internal staff of MACOG to know kind of our direction moving forward with economic development projects, as well as to advise all of you on specific projects in your localities that make sense. This really looks at kind of the broad regional economy as a whole and what we're missing and what we need to build on to be better in the future to not only, hopefully not recover from another pandemic, but other shocks to the economy in the future. Does that make sense?
So,
go ahead.
I was going to say, if you want me to provide some additional clarification. So, we received this funding under the CARES Act through EDA, and one of the things that they wanted every region to focus on is how the economy of the region could be more resilient and recover from, in this case, the disaster was COVID-19. This was not necessarily environmental disasters like floods or those kind of elements, but much more an economic recovery from COVID and trying to build in better resiliency. So throughout 2020, we kind of all saw underlying issues that were exposed, that COVID exposed, that presented challenges. You know, for example, one of the things that the plan looks at ends up being childcare, because throughout 2020, there were limited seats in childcare, and when schools closed, parents tried to figure out what to do. And often that meant what they would do is that one person might step out of the workforce, right? And that creates kind of various levels of inequity, right? So what this plan looks at then are these kind of key facets within the region of, under different scenarios, whether we just continue on the same trajectory, whether we continue on a trajectory of adding more jobs or adding more people, what are the things that we are going to need as a region to be more resilient and meet that challenge? Then there's also this element of, so MACOG was required to author this study. What the heck should we, as MACOG, should be taking on to support those things? So, you know, we're not necessarily in a child care space. That's not one of the topics historically that we've waded into and pretend to be an expert in. We're not. So we got a lot of child care experts in the room to talk about the things that they needed. And if there was any space, if it made any sense for us to provide any assistance, and they came up with various strategies like, hey, it'd be great if we could do some better mapping around some of these topics, or this or that. And so it outlines then not only, hey, does the region need maybe an extra 5,000 seats to not be a childcare desert around the entire region to just meet our existing need, let alone if we add 43,000 people, we're going to need 7,000 some seats to not be a childcare desert. Not only does it look at that, but then like, well, what can MACOG do to assist these folks who are already working on this? So that's kind of the framing in which it's created. I don't know if that helps at all.
No, it did. It did. I just wanted to know if it was going to stay in the vein of what we do as MACOG, or whether or not it was going to dip in some of the other areas that were exposed, like healthcare services, multiple different areas where inequities existed that we didn't really recognize until COVID.
There's a lot of areas that we don't work in that this touches on. Now, that's ultimately a question long-term of, we ask in this, are there areas within those where we could provide some assistance, some logical fits? And so to that point, there are a lot of spaces in this that we don't necessarily cover directly, but could provide some assistance, so. Yeah.
Look forward to taking a look.
Thank you.
All right, the last two items on the staff update are items that I'll handle as staff update. AmeriCorps Program. This is a new item. Wanted to provide you with some information and how it also stems in with the Disaster Recovery and Resiliency Plan. So we were approached by Serve Indiana. Serve Indiana oversees the AmeriCorps program in the state of Indiana. They had some additional planning funds available that would help kind of create AmeriCorps programs. So they approached us and said, hey, we have some 100% funds that would be focused on an AmeriCorps program. Would you be interested in this? And at first we said, I don't really know. But as we started to think about this, in two areas, it started to emerge as a potential strategy where we could add capacity across the region. So first, we're doing a lot of work around sustainability. Many of you in your communities are doing a lot of work related to sustainability. But even the best of us in sustainability our departments, maybe often, like at MACOG, are one person right now. Let alone, in city departments, they might be one person. And so looking at things like a climate action plan or planting 40,000 trees or something along those lines sometimes faces challenges with capacity to complete those opportunities. So one of the things in which we think an AmeriCorps program could do initially is providing kind of an environmental stewardship component where we could house AmeriCorps members with many of your organizations, with your staffs, to say host an AmeriCorps fellow or 2 or 3 around these kind of sustainability and environmental stewardship areas. Additionally, there might be opportunities working with communities or say real services or others around weatherization and working towards similar to say what the city had with the Green Corps, the city of South Bend had with Green Corps, where we would be able to do some kind of home weatherization audits as well. But also then, if you go back to the Disaster Recovery and Economic Resiliency Plan, there are a lot of areas where we don't necessarily work in that need additional capacity. And a third facet of the AmeriCorps program could be around resiliency and building capacity amongst those kind of topical areas where we could have AmeriCorps fellows housed in different resiliency topics. So there is an opportunity for us as MACOG to have an AmeriCorps program that would be structured kind of to serve in those 3 areas. We potentially have some, I don't want to say free money, but largely free money to study and try and set that program up so that we would be able to start recruiting AmeriCorps members, is the terminology I should be using, for September of 22, September, October of 22. Happy to answer any questions about this, but we think it could be a great strategy to add capacity directly to our cities and towns, counties as well. So largely around all of our members in a variety of different ways, and just the region at large. So happy to answer any questions if there are any.
Yeah, Elkhart will take Goshen's. So just want to.
Goshen was already committed to like a few $100,000 worth of that, so I'm happy to hear it. No, I'm just, no, yeah, but ultimately, I think we would, in starting any program like that, we would probably start with a smaller class to begin with of like 10 to 15 members, but that as we evaluate the success of that program, that it does have the ability to scale. So
no, I have a couple of departments.
And I know that we had an initial conversation with the Environmental Center.
Good.
Yeah. So
good. And there are a couple of other areas that I would love to be able to take advantage of a program like that. So
happy to talk more.
Would definitely be interested in.
Yeah. Our 3 initial feelers to see if we were kind of on the right track were with Aaron over at the city. With the Environmental Center and with City of South Bend staff. So, just to see if, between the 3 of those entities, if we could house 1 to 3 members at each, are we on the right path? And it seemed like we were, so we are planning to proceed forward with that. So just an FYI.
Great,
more news
thanks.
to follow.
Great program.
Last item. This is a big item. So I want to make sure, we've been talking about this for months, but I want to make sure that I keep this on your radar. We're doing a comprehensive operational analysis. That's a $15 term for essentially a deep dive into how the transit systems work in Transpo and the trolley. This is a once in a decade kind of opportunity, I feel like. The last one that was done for Transpo was in 2011. We have gone through the procurement process, so we have talked with you about going through that procurement process. We had 5 great national firms of national regard submit, and we have engaged with Jarrett Walker and Associates who is an outstanding firm. They will be leading this process for us, as well as they have a series of sub-consultants about focused largely on public engagement to make sure that we can hear from all voices related to the operational analysis. So this will take a deep dive into how the systems work or don't work, where there are missed opportunities, where there are opportunities for innovative solutions, microtransit or other kind of things. This is a very large scope. It's the first time that it will have been regional for our area. And we think it can be really transformational for the transit systems. So please keep your ear to the ground on that. We will be establishing a steering committee. So we'll be asking many of your staff to serve on that, as well as then kind of having an elected officials roundtable that will be engaged on that to make sure that you're aware of how that study is progressing and any decision points and everything like that that you can plug into on that. So just FYI, we just awarded that contract technically in August, so we're just getting started and underway. It'll probably be about a 12 to, I think about a 16-month process, so just FYI. Those are all the updates.
Thank you,
for
James.
today.
Appreciate it. There's plenty. All good stuff, though. That brings us to privilege of the floor. Is there anybody wanting to address the board with something that was not on the agenda today? Okay, hearing none, I'll close privilege of the floor. And do we have any public comment today?
So public comment, we've always asked throughout this that there are multiple ways
Seemed like a simple answer was no. No public comment?
No.
Thank you. Is there a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
We have a motion and a second to adjourn. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. We are adjourned.
Hey, you going to the,
Thank you all. We'll see you in October.
I think we technically had quorum to adjourn, did we?